For some reaction to both big speeches tonight, let's go back to Statuary Hall, where South Dakota Senator and GOP Conference Chair in the Senate, John Thune, joins us. Good evening, Senator.
Good evening, Bret.
Senator, just first your reaction to the President's speech. You were in the chamber there, and your thoughts overall.
Well, I thought it was, tone-wise, he was different than he has been in past years. We didn't have the laundry list of things that he wanted to do. He clearly wanted to take credit for what he perceives to be good things that have happened during the last 7 years of his administration. But I think for the most part, Bret, it's a message that's completely inconsistent and incompatible with what the American people have experienced over the past 7 years. So the President's trying to put the best face on the last 7 years of his administration. But I think if you look at the number of people who dropped out of the labor force, the stagnant wages in this country, the fact that there's been an increase in global unrest, a lot of chaos around the world, notwithstanding the President's assertions tonight, I don't think it's going to have much impact on the American people, and it certainly isn't something that I think is going to lead to much accomplishment here on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, Senator, I want to ask you some specifics about some of the things he mentioned and how it affects the Senate and Congress overall. How do you stop the President if he's fully committed to closing the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay?
Well, we've consistently put riders on appropriation bills that prevent him from doing that. We'll continue to do that. I'm sure he'll look, as he always has, on things that he wants to accomplish for ways to go around Congress and try and accomplish it by executive action. But remember, Bret, that everything that he does now, this is a one-year deal now. This is a short-term president. This guy's on the way out the door. The next administration can, with a stroke of a pen, reverse anything that he does over the course of the next year. So, but we will do everything we can here in Congress to prevent him from moving forward with some of the things that he said he was going to try and do this evening. And of course, closing Guantanamo is one of those.
The other thing he talked about was the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the trade deal. It was interesting to see that only his cabinet stood up and applauded that. Is TPP dead for this Congress in this election year?
I think it's on life support. Frankly, there are a lot of good things. There are many of us who want to see TPP get done. It's good for agricultural markets, certainly the area of the country that I represent. And there are a lot of other members in our party, at least, who want to see this get done, but have concerns about the agreement that was negotiated and would like to see changes made to it. So if I was handicapping it, I'd say it's less than 50-50 it gets done this year, but I hope it gets done eventually. It's something that we need to do.
But you don't think that your party is going to move that ball forward? I mean, it would be Republicans who took it across the finish line. It
would have to be passed with Republican votes. There may be a handful of Democrats available. Of course, it'll take 60 in the Senate, but so we have to get a few Democrats on board. But I would say right now that there are concerns on both sides about this, and including leading Republicans who want to see changes made before it gets advanced. But eventually, and we're hoping if it doesn't happen in the next 10 months, that in a new administration we get this thing across the finish line, because it is good for the economy, it's good for jobs, and we need to open markets for our products that we raise in this country.
Senator, the other thing the President called for on the global front was Congress to pass an authorization of the use of military force against ISIS, an AUMF. Will the Senate pass one?
Unlikely. I think that the President basically wants to shift the burden. Democrats in Congress want to get conditions imposed on any involvement there that would limit U.S. engagement, limit the duration, limit any troop involvement there. I mean, I just think it's a way, if it devolves into a debate here up in the Congress, that it could make it more difficult for us to achieve success and to win. So the President has the authority that he needs, and most of us believe that. We have members on our side who would like to see an AUMF at least debated again, but if I were a betting man, I would say that's something that's unlikely to move in the Senate this year.
This is into the weeds of the Senate, but I want to ask you about, there's talk about making appropriations bill, the funding of the government, exempt from the Senate filibuster. In other words, the need to get 60 votes. Is that something that Republicans in the Senate are working on?
We have a task force that's looking at some of those issues right now, Bret, just to see if there's a way that we can actually expedite dealing with appropriation bills so we don't end up with these huge spending bills at the end of the year, which are done at the last minute and in the dark of night with a handful of people in the room. We need individual appropriation bills to move. It's much more transparent. There's much more accountability there. It's a cleaner way to do it. And if there is a way that on at least a motion to proceed to get on a bill that would allow us to debate those bills, that we might be able to change the rules, I think that's something that some of us are willing to look at. But remember, if you do it the right way, say it takes 67 votes in the Senate to change the rules. There'd have to be Democrat cooperation, and I don't know at this point if that's available or not, but it is something that we've got some folks that are giving some examination to.
Two other quick things, really. The president said one thing he thinks that Congress can get done with the administration is criminal justice reform. You agree?
I do. I think that's something that really, actually, if you're looking for any one issue that could be a bipartisan accomplishment in this next Congress, there's interest on both sides in doing it. I think there's a path forward for it. There are a lot of states around the country that want to see us act on this, and it may be one of those issues that actually could move forward this year.
The last thing on Governor Haley and her speech, she acknowledged there's a lot of anger out there. Do you feel that?
Sure, we do. I mean, I think there's frustration, there's anger, which explains the rise of some of the candidates that are doing well in the Republican race this year. But what she did, I think, tonight is what we need to do as Republicans, as a party, is to present a clear alternative next year, a positive agenda, strike a tone with the American people that conveys the message that we want to be the party of the future. We want to articulate a vision that's about jobs and the economy and growth and protecting the country, but about lifting people up and using liberty as opposed to using expanding government, which is what the past 7 years of this administration have been all about, and frankly what the president's speech was largely about this evening.
Senator Thune, thanks for the time tonight.
Good to be with you. Thanks, Bret.